Hello everyone, Daisy here. Here's my contribution for October. Samhain's Common Witch Coven is a crystal grid tutorial, and I teach crystal grids classes at my house here in the town I live in. So what I want to start off with doing, of course, always in our ceremony, I first want to preface with saying, make your ceremony your own. You may have your own ceremony in places that you always like to do. Here is just my suggestion for a crystal grid. It does not have to look like this or be this complicated. It can be very, very simple. And if you don't have crystals, I even use rocks from, we have a sacred site out here that Native Americans traded in. So I have some special stones from there. So whatever you use for your grid, be it 100 stones or one stone, I first always start off with cleansing my space and clearing it of any energies that are perhaps hanging around that I don't want to be hanging around. So I just cleanse the space and clear the space. Clear myself, cleanse myself, because I want to be a clear channel, right? When I'm manifesting, when I'm bringing divine intention in. Like what I do for my crystal grids is really just getting really clear about what I want to bring into my life, what I really want to release or shed as well. My crystal grids are just a physical way for me to focus my intention on something, what I want to bring more of or what I want to let go of. So I've wrote down some intentions for this grid. This grid I specifically made because Samhain is a time of honoring the ancestors, and so I have my grandparents here, and they're kind of watching over and adding their love and energy to this grid. And what's been going on recently, we've had a really heavy kind of week this last week of September. Now that I'm filming this, I don't know when you're watching, with an imbalance between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. It's been going on for hundreds of years, obviously, but we're really at a culminating point now. So I've asked for protection. I'm asking for a balancing of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And the divine masculine here is represented by the Emperor in the tarot deck. The divine masculine is like the king, is like the man who rules over the kingdom and make sure that everyone is taken care of. He's the divine giver. He's the one that sees where there's imbalance and fixes that balance. He is not tyrannical. He is not out of whack, and he provides for all equally and fairly and makes sure that everyone has their place and everyone feels taken care of. And then I have the Empress here, and representative of the divine feminine and our divine ability to receive. And it's not always easy for women and men to understand and receive and allow things to come in. We get really blocked up in our emotions. We get really blocked up in our manifestation powers, where we stop ourselves from receiving abundance because we can't move past what the injustices are. And when we find a balance between the two, when we can divinely give and we can divinely receive, then we have an even exchange. We want to be able to receive so that we can feel filled up. We can receive our intuition. We can receive messages from beyond the veil, which is, this time is, the veil is very thin. We are receiving a lot of information from divine source. It's accessible to you, but are you receiving it? Are you opening yourself up to those intuition? Just a quick, thing about your intuition is it can come in many forms. It can come in a way of knowing. You can come in a way of words being spoken to you and separate from the mind. Like, our intuition asks us to be really trusting and really rooted in a faith that what we are thinking is true. Like, if we are constantly doubting ourselves, then it's really hard to listen to your intuition, right? the difference between the ego, the loud voice that says we can't do things, and the soft whisper of the soul. The soul wants us to be free and wants us to jump off the ledge and wants us to do things that seem impossible but are really that really are possible. And the ego just wants to keep us safe and wants to keep us alive. It has its purpose, it has its reasons, and it's our old patterns are really set in that ego. Like, this is safe, I've done this before, but does it really make me feel like my heart's singing? Does it really make me feel like I can achieve the impossible? No, because the ego can't. The ego doesn't want to. The ego just wants to stay safe and small. So I've also put in for my intentions supportive communities that weave us together instead of dividing us more, which is very, very important. I feel like we need to hear the voice of the minority, of the oppressed, and of those who have not had a say for hundreds of years. We really need to do a better job of supporting our whole community, and that means the whole world. Our community, our consciousness is composed of every one person, and then every one person's connection to each other. All of consciousness. And then the ancestral healing. So whenever we heal ourselves from these old patterns and these old, outdated societal, cultural, patterns, we heal for the ancestors that couldn't do it in their time. Because, if we think back a few hundred years ago, women couldn't vote, women couldn't hold property, and that's still true in some countries now. If we can heal that now, if we can bring an equality and a balance to the divine masculine and the divine feminine now, then we don't have to heal that for the future, because it's already taken care of. So just a little bit about that. I like to slip my intentions underneath the cloth and underneath the top crystal point, because in crystal grids, how it works is the energy is filtering down from source down through the top crystal point and out into the rest of the grid. Now, if you don't have a crystal point and you still want to make a crystal grid, you don't have to worry. There is no right or wrong. Please put whatever crystals you have on your grid, and it doesn't have to have a grid cloth. It can be free form on a table. Make a space for it. Allow yourself to say, I'm just going to do an experiment even. Like, it doesn't have to look anything like this. It can be very, very simple, maybe 4 crystals. Or, whatever you have, or pictures of crystals, or special stones, like these stones. It can be anything that is significant to you in your grid and in your intention and in your manifestation work. So after I have cleansed the space and really kind of dropped in, so I'm allowing myself to breathe and to think about my intention and think about what I want to manifest, the balancing between the divine masculine and feminine. And I take a little wand. This is my little ceremony, and I draw myself up and down like a little flower pattern, almost like from the outside to the inside, from the outside to the inside, repeating the maybe a mantra or an affirmation that I, divine balance between the divine masculine and the feminine, balance between the divine masculine and the feminine, balance between the divine masculine and the feminine, whatever your affirmation is. And I do that 3 times around. Then I like to sit and just breathe and kind of feel what the energy of the crystals is now that they're activated by doing the activation. Activation is when you're moving it around, you're activating the crystals, you're programming them, you're telling them this is what our intention is. And so vibrate with me on that intention, because crystals all have a high vibratory field. They're healing little energy bodies in and of themselves. So in a collection like this, they're very powerful. And you can see, like for my grid, I've made the divine feminine being the ethereal, being the receiving. We're receiving the divine intuition, it coming down to the point of the heart, and then out and down through the lower body, the lower chakras. You can think of it as in the higher chakras to the lower chakras. And then the grounding and the strength and the stability and the solid foundation here. So I have snake skin for rebirth and shedding the old ways. We have some beautiful autumn leaves. It's California, so don't really have too much autumn here yet. We're still kind of in the push and pull between 90 and 70 right now. So, so after I've put my intentions very clearly into the space, into the grid, breathing here, allowing myself to sink and to think exactly about, so what I'm imagining in my head and what I'm visualizing is what a society and a culture that is supportive and is the divine masculine and the divine feminine looks like. How we exchange equally, how we exchange with the earth equally, how we don't take and dump, but that we recycle everything, and that we allow everyone to have some of everything, because it's really a falsity that there isn't enough for everybody. There is enough. We just have an imbalance. So sitting here and breathing with my intention and allowing the grid to kind of soak that in, and for me to soak that in and visualize this world, this perfect world. If we can't imagine it now, how can we achieve it? How can we get to a point where it really becomes reality if it isn't something that we think that can happen? So as we're setting our intention and breathing in our intention and visualizing, then we just allow the grid to kind of soak in, programming the crystals with those intentions. And then close out the ceremony. You can ring a bell, maybe play a singing bowl, or however you like to ground your ceremonies out. Maybe you want to take your intention and burn it with a candle in a fire-safe way, and allow that to be like lifted off into the great spirits. It's up to you if you want to burn or however you want. There is no right or wrong. Isn't that wonderful to know? Like, you're doing it right. You're doing it right. Yeah. So sitting with our intention, being with our intention, allowing our grid to soak that up, and then closing out the ceremony, and that's it, guys. Like, that's my crystal tutorial. You can be as complicated, as entrenched in it as you want. It can be as simple and as easy as you want it to be. It's all about creating your own ceremony, creating your own intentions, and then living by those intentions and making time for them. Like, again, with the divine feminine, with the receiving, make time to do this stuff for yourself, because you feel so much better, and then you can give so much more to others. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, please, you can contact me through my Instagram. It's Daisy Meadows, Daisy with a Z. Or you can email me at daisyyoga.com. daisyyoga@gmail.com. And yeah, so thank you guys. Have a wonderful October, and enjoy the rest of the Coven's material. I know it's going to be beautiful.